So there's a lot that can be done still to stop them, but you know, we need your help. We need your voices. So you guys can't see this, but this is the most beautiful picture ever of the Santa Ritas with a field of flowers in the front. And you all know what a great place that is to recreate. And it's a real focus for tourism in our area, as the Patagonias are. And I don't know if you guys know how our area is being hammered by these foreign mines, but there's an Australian company that's going to be building a mine in the Patagonias. So when you think about these things collectively, a mine in the Santa Ritas, a mine in the Patagonias, all, you know, hopscotching all over the place, think about the effect that has on our tourism and outdoor recreation. And our health and our water. Thank you for that. And our health and our water. So when I get audience participation like this, I want to jump all around and not follow my script. Because, yeah, water. But we'll come back to that. So who is this? It's Hudbay. They're a Canadian company. Unfortunately, we have this crazy law that was passed in 1872 to try to open up the West to mineral exploration that gives foreign companies the right to come in and take our national forest lands, our BLM lands. They don't pay a penny in royalty. It's not like coal, it's not like gas. There isn't a penny of royalties paid. So where do the profits go? If we follow the money, the copper for at least the first 4 years of this project is going to go overseas. Hudbay's put that in their plan for Copper World. It's all going to go overseas. That's because there's no refining capacity in the U.S. There just isn't enough. Right now, we are sending a lot of copper mined in the U.S. overseas for refining because there isn't the capacity in the U.S. So this is all going to go overseas, almost certainly to China, because that's where all the capacity is. And then guess where we're going to buy it back from, probably? Okay, and the profits is a Canadian company. Where are the profits going? They're all going to shareholders in Canada. So when Hudbay tries to tell you this is a great deal for the local economy, do not believe them. What was my last thing on the slide? So yeah, basically what we'll get is a handful of jobs out of it, something on the order, they say, 400 jobs. And we'll be left with a half-mile deep, mile-and-a-half around pit of toxic water, no outdoor recreation, no tourism coming to see the Santa Ritas. And we're going to get in a moment to what we put in the mailing we did to you guys, which is the impact on your daily lives. No, which is the impact on your daily lives. So this is just to show you where the mine is. In a general way, Sahuarita's here, Green Valley's here, Copper World is over here in the Santa Ritas. I bet all of you know where it is because you can see it. I have a friend who lives in Green Valley fairly high up with great views of the Santa Ritas, and she was telling me she can't go out on her back deck right now because at night the lights are shining.
Hi, I'm going to interrupt the program for just a moment. We have a few individuals standing outside in the heat who desperately need to sit. If anyone would be generous enough to give up their seat, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
We're not allowed to. There's a capacity on the room.
W2 capacity, maximum capacity.
Yeah. Yeah, if we go over that, we may not get to use it again.
Then they'll really kick
Okay. I don't know. We're just going to go.
We're good, Rob.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much to those of you who gave your seats up. Okay, what we're talking about here is a giant mess in Sahuarita caused by trucks. The Syriad mission mines next to Sahuarita in Green Valley, they use rail. That's true of almost every big mine in the country. This mine's going to be the 4th biggest copper mine, they say, in the U.S. So we're talking big mine. Lots of equipment going in and out. Lots of ore going out overseas. So a lot of traffic. How many? 40,000 trips per year we calculate. They have not released any kind of a traffic plan. I think they're trying to go under the radar so that you guys don't know. And you don't realize what this is going to do to your community. These are going to be running 24/7. That's a truck every 15 minutes right through downtown Sahuarita. That's their route. It's coming from the mine, northwest through Santa Rita Road through the experimental range. Then they're going to hang a left on Sahuarita Road, go to I-19, and then I-19 they're either going to go north to Tucson or more likely south to Mexico to hook up with rail down there. So you got to imagine what it's going to look like to have these trucks pounding through. This is what I was just describing. I'm sure you guys can't see it, but it shows the blue line on this slide is the route from the mine up to Sahuarita. And this shows that, I don't know if you can see this, but here's where they're going to go right through downtown Sahuarita to I-19, schools and library, school and municipal buildings. 24/7, 24/7. On top of that, there's going to be, during the construction phase, there's going to be 1,000 commuters every day. And, you know, regular commute traffic after that. So imagine what it's like right now when you're picking up your kids or grandkids down there or going to use those buildings, what it's going to be like when the trucks are going through. And I'll tell you one thing I get really tired of hearing is people have been emailing me on the other side going, this is a NIMBY issue, this is a NIMBY issue, you know. It's, you know, you guys have a right to fight for good living conditions and your personal safety and the safety of your kids and grandkids. This is, you know, like they're trying to stick it in your front yard. This isn't a not in my backyard issue. This is a front yard issue. So we're talking traffic jams. We're talking accidents, 40,000 trucks per year, a huge increase in mine commuter traffic, congestion near schools, possible backups onto I-19, which happens from time to time. In 2011, the previous owner of this mining operation, which was called Augusta Resources, they were forced, because they were on the federal land at that point or planning to go on the federal land, they had to do what's called an environmental impact statement. So they had to pay for experts to look at, among other things, what the truck traffic was going to do. At that point, they weren't coming off the west side through Sahuarita. They were going to jump right onto 83 and go south. Well, so, you know, a lot less chance for accidents going on 83, but that still predicted triple the number of accidents and triple the number of deaths at a minimum. So we don't have figures because HUD Bay hasn't given us a plan. And one of the things we're asking is you guys should be shouting to the town of Sahuarita and Green Valley, and anybody who's going to be affected by this should be shouting to your elected officials and going, we need a dang plan. We need to know what HUD Bay is planning to do. What are your, you know, mayor and commissioner Sahuarita, what are your, town council, what are your plans for dealing with this, keeping us safe? And accidents do happen. This is an overturned truck hauling what's called copper concentrate, which is what's going to be going overseas from the mine through downtown Sahuarita near HUD Bay's Constancia mine in Peru. This is a mine tanker that spilled sulfuric acid near Pina in October 2020. You can't, if you can see the pictures, the whole cab is all crumpled up. There was a sulfuric acid spill. So these things do happen. And this is a picture of a truck that in October 2020 spilled nitric acid near Kolb on I-10, shut down traffic in both directions. So, you know, we're not talking something hypothetical. We're something that happens all the time. And this is from that environmental impact statement, the draft that was done back in 2011, where they had to project what would happen. And this is what I'm calling the danger zone. They said if there's a spill of something like ammonium nitrate or sulfuric acid, this is the radius of impact where people living would be affected. That's covering the schools, that's covering the city buildings, that's covering the library, that's covering a lot of homes. This bigger circle out here, this is if some of the explosives, because they're going to be trucking in and out trucks full of explosives. Some of these explosives go off, then you're talking a 1 mile radius. 1 mile radius. So there's, you know, the chance of this happening is pretty small, but accidents happen. And the town of Sahuarita, you know, they're not telling you anything. I mean, anybody here gotten anything from the town about this? Wait. Yeah, that's right. He says they claim they don't have jurisdiction.
That they don't, and they can make a difference.
Right.
I stood the mayor up, and he said he has no, you know, he's a copper guy. Everybody's got to know that. He's a copper guy. You know what? There's a lot going on, and we can make a difference. Did it with Vulcan, we can do it with copper market.
Well,
Man.
the bigger problem is,
That is better than I could have said it.
What did they say?
I'll repeat it. He said, you wave if I got something wrong. I think you said the mayor's a copper guy, and he worked for the copper mines. And what else?
Well, what else is that they say that they have no jurisdiction.
That's right. They say they have no jurisdiction. But the thing is, they may not have the right to tell the mine no, but they have the right to join with you guys and with Pima County and with City of Tucson in opposing the mine. Pima County and the City of Tucson have resolutions passed opposing this mine because, and I'll come to this in a bit, it's not only this traffic, there's water. There's a bunch of issues with this mine. This is probably the craziest place in the world to put a mine. It's the only big mine that would be like right next to a major metropolitan area like this. I'm jumping all over my talk, but I'm getting excited. So I want to say we're going to hear from some of the neighborhood activists that are helping organize the community against this in a little bit. And one of them here lives, like, her house is, which is like her dream house on an arroyo nature. It's like 600 feet from where they're going to put a 500-foot tall pile of toxic tailings. Well, Hudbay, I think their strategy is basically just slide under the radar, right? You guys don't know what's going to happen. You're going to wake up and these trucks are going to be pounding down Sahuarita Road. Demand an independent traffic study of what's going to happen, congestion, accidents, and fatalities. Tell the council they should pass a resolution against the mine, just like the City of Tucson did and Pima County did. So Pima County is basically an ally with us against this mine because they know what this mine is going to do, in particular to the economy. And I'll come back to that in a couple minutes. You could attend a city town council meeting. Some of our folks went at the last one. There's an open call for the public to come speak for, I don't know, I think you get 3 minutes or something like that. And April 28th, 6 p.m. There's another one on May 12th. So go raise a little hell. Okay, so I wanted to kind of inoculate you guys because you will hear a lot of stuff put out by the pro-copper folks, and I wanted to inoculate you a little bit. With our new guy in health and the federal government, maybe I can't inoculate you, but I'll give you a little information. So big mining has the same game plan every community they go in, whether it's copper, molybdenum, silver, gold, whatever it is. They follow the same game plan. First of all, they exaggerate the economic benefits and they downsize the economic pain. Okay? And, you know, Hudbay ain't no different. They downplay the health consequences or they just don't mention them. You all know about, you know, you've got mine tailings here. You all know that that dust blows into the community, right? They've been fined by ADEQ, the Mission Mine, for example. They've been fined over there by ADEQ for letting the dust blow into the community. That tailings dust is highly toxic. It's got lead in it. You all know lead paint, right? What lead paint does to children's nervous systems when they're developing. It's got lead in it. It's got cadmium. It's got arsenic in it. You know, and some of you guys may be, you know, respiratory compromised. You don't want to be breathing more stuff. And a lot of you have seen what's been happening, the big increase in dust levels, just from the relatively few trucks that are going down that unpaved section of Santa Rita Road there. A lot of dust in the valley, so that's a bad thing. HUD Bay says they're going to spray some stuff on it to hold it down. Probably eventually they'll want to get it paved, but just sort of an indication of the kind of respiratory issues and air pollution stuff. And then they make economic deals with some section of the community to turn the community against each other. Like, HUD Bay made some contracts, I believe, with the Carpenters Union, and so at the ADEQ meeting on the one of the permits, 30 guys showed up wearing hard hats from the Carpenters Union. They're pro-mine. So this is really, really typical strategy. So what are some of the claims they make? HUD Bay's, one of the claims is Pima County's economy is in terrible shape, and the mine is going to save us by creating 400 jobs. And first of all, it's not so. So let me show you this. A couple years ago, we got really tired of hearing this stuff, this PR pro-mine about how great it's going to be for the economy. So we hired a top-notch economic firm. The head of the firm has a PhD in economics from Princeton. And they're experts at looking at the effects of mines on community economies. And they looked at a whole lot of stuff. And let me see if I can back up. I'm not backing. So one of the things they pointed out was that Pima County is actually incredibly resilient. We've weathered the last 8 recessions really, really well, either with no drop-off or a bounce back right away. So this idea that, we're all a bunch of weak economy that needs a lot of help from this mine is really not true. So this report, I'll get to a slide that'll show it a little better. Another claim, you'll hear this all the time. Okay, to help with global warming, we've got to make a transition to green energy. And we got to have copper for green energy. So therefore, if you're against this mine, you're against producing copper to save energy to tamp down the greenhouse effect. Well, nothing could be further than the truth. The USGS, U.S. Geological Survey, which has the responsibility under federal law of maintaining a list of what are called critical minerals. Those are minerals that are essential for our economy or defense and are likely to be in short supply. So they're supposed to forecast. They do not have copper listed as a critical mineral. And a year or so ago, Senator Sinema and some other senators wrote a letter to the head of USGS and said, we want you to add it to the list of critical minerals. Now, why does the copper industry want it added? Is so they can get tax breaks and subsidies from the federal government. Well, the head of USGS wrote back and said, no, it's not in short supply. We have good trading partners with that provide us enough. We produce a lot ourselves. Another piece of information is a lot of U.S. mines right now, copper mines, are producing below capacity. So if you were, in charge of the U.S. and you'd go, what would be a smart thing to do? It might be to start with some of those mines that are producing under capacity, or we might look for a place where the mine wouldn't do so much damage. But that's not how it works. Under the 1872 mining law, these foreign companies can come in, U.S. companies too, but in Arizona it's typically mostly foreign companies, and they can just come in. And they don't go, where's the best place for the U.S. to put a copper mine? They go, where can we make the most money? That's what they're looking at. And so that's why they're here. That's why HUD Bay is here. And this is just another little aside for those of you who like to think about the future and what could be. There's a whole lot of non-copper alternatives that are even better conductors of electricity that can be used in, say, mobile devices that are being developed quickly. Last thing is Copper World. They've got on their website, and it's like, hey, this is going to be made in America copper, made in Arizona. Well, I told you about that already, right? It's going to go overseas, and the profits are going to go to Canada. So tourism and recreation, I hit this slightly in the beginning. We're looking at like a regional loss of tourism income and outdoor recreation income because of these proliferation of mines that are going in here, there, and the other place. Another thing that should concern you guys is that home values are almost certainly going to drop once the mine gets built. The economic report projected, and these are all projections, and they're based on what happened in communities in the past when mines went in. So they did a review of all these economic studies that have been done on other mines in the past and what happened when those mines came into the economy. And then they tried to predict what would happen for Pima County. And just in Corona de Tucson, they predicted that property values could drop $100 million. Because it's sort of like, who wants to live next to a 500-foot tall pile of toxic waste? Groundwater pumping, they've got a permit right now for about 2 billion gallons per year. That's enough to support 20,000 households. Their wells are right near Sahuarita, and they're going to be pumping the same groundwater that the town's using, ranches are using in the area, and so on. So you guys are going to be competing with the mine. And we don't know how much ultimately they will use, but there's no limit. Their previous plan, if we go back to 2022, they were looking at 4.6 billion gallons per year, not 2. Anytime you get in billions, I don't really, doesn't compute to me. It's a big number. Googleplex, gallons of water. The health risks, talked about that, the tailing piles. This is a map of Corona de Tucson showing right where they will be putting the tailings, and I'll try to wave my arms. Sure. So right there, those yellow mustard squares are where HUD Bay plans to put their tailings. And Cathy, show where your house is.
Rob, there's a question about where we're looking at now.
Where, here,
This is, Sarita Road is up this way.
Is that a mile away, or is that?
Sarita Road.
Is that a mile away? This is
It's,
this is how
far is
Road
it?
is just off the map. HUD Bay always cuts their maps off right here. HUD Bay always cuts their maps and their reports right here and doesn't show the 1,000-home subdivision that's right above it. So we shifted.
yeah, so here's one of the places they're going to have a giant tailing pile, like the one that's like you're seeing, there in Green Valley. And right there's Cathy's house, and then right here, a little less than a mile and a half away, is Copper Ridge Elementary School. So what happens when the prevailing winds blow that away? And right up there, 2.5 miles away, is a middle school. So significant health risks. The state of Arizona, you might think, okay, the state of Arizona, they've got your back. They've got Department of Environmental Quality. Ha ha. Their mission is specifically to protect the health and the environment of the people in Arizona. We are struggling with them every day. Right now, they just, as I said, they gave ADEQ gave Copper World its air permit a few months ago. We're appealing that right now because we believe that they did their calculations wrong. And we've...
Outdated. They came up with those models in the 1950s. Wow. This is 2025. There's a big difference.
And we have on our board a gentleman who, until a year or so ago, was head of atmospheric sciences at the University of Arizona, and he analyzed these models that ADEQ used, and he says, you can't really even tell from what they presented what the heck they did, and he doesn't think it's right, so we're appealing. The other bullet, the second one, is that the Arizona Land Department gave HUD Bay an illegal right-of-way. They broke the open meetings law by having a secret meeting, not open to the public, as the Arizona open meetings law says they have to, and they gave HUD Bay a right-of-way across part of this Santa Rita experimental range. We're fighting that in court right now. So let's see. So if we work together, we can stop this. Like I said, it's not over yet. They say they're ready to go. They got the permits, but not so. We're appealing. We're suing. So let's see, which pretty much says that same thing. The last two bullets there say a couple other indications that it's not a done deal is that the board of directors of HUD Bay has not green-lighted this project yet because there are obstacles in the way. One of them is called SSSR. Let's see. So now we're going to hear from your neighbors with the Corona de Tucson Preservation Alliance.
Darlene, who is also a neighbor by me, we both lived out in Corona de Tucson for 25 years, 26 in April, so I guess. We live right there. And that yellow area was an old cattle ranch when we came here. And we knew, I'm going to stick to my script or I'd be here all day. But when my husband and I bought our house in Corona de Tucson in 1999, there wasn't much here. Rita Ranch was just starting to be built. South of I-10 was mostly desert. Corona de Tucson had 900 residents, mostly empty nesters as there were no schools. But it was peaceful, wildlife was abundant, the views and sunsets were to die for. There was an old 500-acre cattle ranch next to my property. We suspected one day a developer would buy it. In 2006, Augusta Resources, a mine, bought it. We met with the guy that they hired to stay in the old ranch house, and he said they were keeping it as buffer to keep the population from getting closer to their proposed mine. That was actually a smart idea. In 2010, the population was now 5,000. A couple of planned communities popped up, schools were built. Rosemont bought Augusta out in 2013. Same plan, they were building a mine on the east side, but wanted to keep this growing community from moving any closer to the mine. Then everything changed in 2021 because of a court ruling, and Rosemont shifted their attention to the west side of the Santa Ritas. They quietly bought up a whole bunch of properties, rebranded themselves as Copper World. The population of Corona de Tucson was now over 9,000. There were many conservation-minded subdivisions, several schools. They had their chance when the population was under 1,000, but they sprung this on us after 10,000 people called it home. We found out about this mine when we received notice that they were doing some test drilling across from my house to try and obtain a 40-acre parcel of state land that connects their property to Sycamore Canyon subdivision. They wanted to meet with the neighbors on Ocotillo Rim Trail to talk. We finally agreed. Jerry Bustamante came to my house where we had gathered. He had someone with him. He said that was another member of his management team. Didn't give us a business card. We had lots of questions, but before we could get into it, they announced that they had purchased 3 parcels of land on Ocotillo Rim Trail, a residential neighborhood. Our jaws dropped. We were stunned. They pointed out that yes, the ranch land would be used for tailings, and our views would be impacted greatly. But they had a solution for us. They offered to buy our properties and homes for fair market value. Turns out the other manager was their real estate attorney. Fun fact, I looked online and I spoke to the realtor at one of their closings. The properties they bought in my residential neighborhood were purchased by Max Fisher, Panther Peak LLC. Nobody had an idea they were mine. That's how they do it. They use fear and intimidation. Essentially, if you don't like it, leave. But they missed this time. My neighbors and I had lived out there more than 20 years. We had roots. We weren't going anywhere. I looked north toward the huge Sycamore Canyon subdivision and thought, they have no idea what's coming. I looked south toward the pristine Sycamore Canyon that runs through my property and thought about our wildlife. Yes. Then I got mad. How can this foreign mine come in here and destroy our properties and it's okay? HUD Bay has no plans to put in extra protections for this mine. They will comply with the bare minimum requirements of state law. I have asked them many times, what are you going to do to help us? And they said, we will comply with state laws. They just parrot that phrase over and over. That's all it is. They argued against and are not putting in liners in the tailings piles. We are tax-paying American citizens. If I walked up to my neighbor's fence and dumped a bucket of paint on his property, I'd be arrested. but this mine can dump toxic tailings on their property that will wash and blow into ours, and that's okay. Their toxic material will coat the leaves of plants that wildlife eat. Hunters will take deer that are sickened in the national forest. Backyard gardens will be impacted for miles. We have wells. Will they be poisoned? Will they dry up? How is this legal? I'm not done yet. I knew nothing about mines. We reached out to SSSR and have been working with them ever since. We started learning everything we can about HUD Bay and the facts surrounding the operation of this mine. We now know the devastation that will be far-reaching. What they do up there will not stay up there. You want to flip to my other picture? Because this is where I usually say that. We blew the punchline. That is a picture taken from my side yard. That is Sycamore Canyon. What's upstream of that is the ranch house that is going to be a tailings dump. When that water runs through, and mind you, it's a ephemeral stream technically and is not protected by WOTUS, so it's dry unless it just had a heavy rain, which it did right before this appeared. All of that runs right into Sycamore Canyon subdivision. Let's see. So yeah, once again, what they do up there will not stay up there. We reached out to other neighborhoods and began to spread the word. We started a Facebook group as a place to store all that we learn. HUD Bay thought they could creep in and take hold before anybody realized what was going on. In 2022, HUD Bay published a pre-economic assessment and embarked on a public relations blitz to spread the word they were a modern, environmentally friendly mine, touting high-tech electric haul trucks, safety features, and on-site copper cathode processing that would create a guaranteed domestic supply for the U.S., made in America for Americans. They would have high-paying jobs, not your average truck and shovel operation like other mines. Then in 2023, they published their pre-feasibility study that eliminated most of that. It took out the high-tech safety equipment, the shiny electric trucks, and took out the on-site cathode processing made in America and deferred that to, we will consider whether that's feasible after year 4 of operations. I'm not going to make it. Until that time, we will ship your ore overseas, use rented trucks, no guaranteed domestic supply, just an average old truck and shovel operation. But they did not change their messaging to match that. They can say whatever they want as long as they use we plan, we hope, we want to soften the tone. They deliberately left parts of their plan out of the permits to make it easier to get the permits. Then after the place is destroyed, they will swoop back around and ask for an amendment. Yep, that's perfectly legal. That's my story. There are communities on all sides of this mine that face the same threat. We all need to help each other and stand united against Copper World. We were here first. This is a poorly thought out Plan B mine that is too close to populated areas, is cutting corners everywhere it can, and hasn't even started operating. It will be 2030 at the earliest for that to happen. We still have time to change its course and send them back to Canada.
Hi, thank you everyone for coming. My name is Christi Moody. I'm also going to read from script because I'm a little nervous. So I live in Sycamore Canyon. It's one of the many subdivisions in Corona de Tucson and a community seldom, if ever, mentioned by HUD Bay. In fact, their map ends before our community boundaries. The growing subdivision is expected at 1,000 homes when it's complete, and it's fast and furious. We have young families and retirees, many with a lot of ailments. My home is exactly a quarter mile from Copper Ridge Elementary School, and HUD Bay's Copper World Complex is 1.25 miles from south of the elementary school. You can see it very clearly when you're standing there. I moved to the area in 2019 for its beauty, blue skies, clean air. I'm also got some compromises to my health, wildlife, and to get away from the constant lights and the noise and the pollution of the city. I was not informed a copper mine was in the works, and to date, I will tell you, they're still not disclosing to prospective buyers. Supposedly, because the mine is not operational, they don't have to. Buying a home is a significant investment. I wouldn't have purchased this home had I received this information up front. Copper Ridge Elementary School, currently about 400 students, 50 staff, a community also that will be at risk from particulates that will drift, carried by our famous gale winds, into the area from Copper World's blasting and tailing piles. Tailing piles can contain metals such as lead and cadmium, just to list two, which are exceptionally dangerous. Spores responsible for valley fever can also drift through the air during blasting. Respiratory health is at risk for all of us in the surrounding area. Children are particularly susceptible to air pollution because they spend more time outdoors traditionally and have higher breathing rates than adults. But let's not forget about our aging population. Given our dry climate, exposure levels might be higher compared to other regions where rain washes out the air pollutions every once in a while. Are 400 temporary jobs worth the health to our community? I am also deeply, deeply concerned about the amount of water being pumped from an already fragile aquifer. HUD Bay's aquifer permit on the very front page allows them to pump up to 10 million gallons or more per day. Meanwhile, the city of Tucson has decided, let's charge people living on the outskirts of our city limits who get water from us more, while HUD Bay pays virtually nothing. Water is life. We can live without copper, and as we have heard already, there are other alternatives rapidly in the works, but not without water. And it's a fact definitely overlooked by people labeling us as environmentalists, hippies, and NIMBYs. The reason above are just a few reasons why I joined the fight against this ill-conceived mine. I joined my compadres, Cathy, a great leader, and Julez, who keeps me from being too pessimistic, to help bring awareness to HUD Bay's misleading propaganda. And that's what it is, typical corporate propaganda. And to enlighten residents that ADEQ, our state agency whose mission is to protect communities, is just not doing enough. Thank you for your time.
I can sit here and tell you a ton of the things about the propaganda of HUD Bay and how they don't tell us will seriously impact our lives, but instead I want to talk to you about the people, what the people can do when we all join together. I'm so encouraged by all the people we've met in common purpose. I first met Cathy at her house. She had invited everyone to see just how close the tailing pile would be and talk with other concerned neighbors. At ADEQ's aquifer permit meeting, we met Christi, who is willing to add her efforts to build what has become our grassroots group, Corona de Tucson Preservation Alliance. Many hands make light work, and we're getting close to 300 people in our group. We each have different strengths and contributions. We come from diverse backgrounds, but it's amazing the friends you can make when you gather with your community. We don't have any political affiliations because this is going to affect all of us. It's so nice to see people working together from all walks of life. We started our Facebook group, and that's where we post all the information related to this issue, and that's helped so much. When the Entrada neighborhood, which is just south of Sahuarita Road, they faced an incident of white sludge that was deemed to be from the Simbar quarry. You all know it as the huge white spot in the hills that will be right next to HUD Bay. This sludge traveled 8 miles down the washes this past monsoon season, and we're still fighting for it to be dealt with. Because of our already established group, when it happened, we could all communicate and pivot quickly to figure out who needed to be called and what needed to happen. We've been doing local markets to try to get the word out to the community because we've been noticing a serious lack of awareness as the realtors aren't giving information about the potential mines when you buy a house. Most people hadn't heard of Copper World, and after buying in the neighborhood, or they had heard that Rosemont had been stopped because of a lawsuit. We've been trying to educate as many people as possible, and we're really thankful for SSSR for doing the mailing that reached so many more, even if it's brought some negative feedback. We're really starting to reach people who had only heard Hudbay's propaganda. In our very last market, instead of the 10% knowing about the mine, only 10% had no idea about the mine. So that is a huge improvement. And we're so thankful for all of you who come out and are helping to support this. Thank you.
All right, so we are just about done with our programming here. We just wanted to make sure that we synthesize the what can you do, because I imagine most of you got the mailer. If you didn't already know about this mine, you kind of came here going, okay, this is all terrible, but what can we do about it? And so you've heard a lot of great ideas already from what Rob has shared. We wanted to make sure that the Corner of Tucson Preservation Group was featured because they're an example of what it looks like for neighbors to just reach out to each other, not fully know everything, but still be able to gather and take action. And I will say their group has sort of expanded beyond just Corner of Tucson, so please do check in with them if you're interested in either learning how to organize or just linking up with them. They're great. We're going to do questions in just give me 2 minutes, and then we'll just wrap it up here. All right, so we've talked a lot about the state of Arizona. So Governor Hobbs obviously has, if you've ever written a letter to her, she has yet to really speak up on this, but that doesn't mean that we don't keep putting pressure on her. So one action item you can do is to contact the governor and continue to put pressure specifically about the air quality permit that was issued. It is deeply insufficient. We have reasons for all this. We have science-backed talking points for all this. So if you do nothing else, can somebody bring up the handouts real quick? So if you didn't already notice it on the mailer, we've got extra mailers out there. There's a QR code that takes you to a website called stopcopperworld.com, and on it you can find, so up here, there's a little QR code, or just go to stopcopperworld.com, and you're going to find links there to letter templates as well as the direct email addresses to contact the governor. So we've tried to make that easy for you. So that's one thing. We've talked a lot about the town of Sahuarita, so I won't repeat all of it. Show up at the meetings, write emails. I saw some of you were taking photos of Tom Murphy's email address. It's all on the website. Just Google Sahuarita Town Council and contact them. I know many of you are also in Green Valley. Green Valley Council says that we're a special interest and they're not getting involved, but I like to be called special, so let's just keep going. Is this dying now? Can you? Oh, it's up. Okay. So put pressure there. If you're living in Tucson, same thing with the town council. I will say, I'm sorry, city council. Pima County has expressed their opposition to this, but that's not a reason to not keep putting pressure. Specifically, Steve Christi is the supervisor over this mine, and he is the only voice in support of it. So feel free to contact him.
He's in support of it?
Steve Christi is the only supervisor in Pima County that's in support of this, and it's in D4, which is his area. Yeah, so basically we've talked about the town of Sahuarita, asking about the traffic study, or just really for Hudbay to release their plans.
Can you clarify that Steve Christie is for the
Did I say against?
Yes, no.
Okay, for this.
Oh, yeah. The reason we've gathered here. I will not keep repeating the Sahuarita stuff because I think Rob covered that in detail. Meetings again, April 28th, May 12th. Stop Copper World. So you'll see that there's the letter template, and then also we have a rally in downtown Tucson on May 3rd at 2 p.m. Links to that is also on that website. So we also have flyers out there if you haven't seen them. And really, the last thing is, if you don't already get our newsletters, hopefully you've signed up to receive our newsletters. If you're on Facebook or things like that, just go to our website, scroll to the bottom. There's a sign up for our newsletter link there. There is new actions that can be taken at all times, and that's the best place to be. So that's your other one-stop shop. And then just show up and get out there. You know, the last thing I'll say, and then I'll end it here, is obviously many of you have expressed to me, I've written the governor, I've contacted Mayor Murphy or whomever, they don't care, they're not doing anything, what's the point of it all? But the next steps as far as Hudbay is that they are going to be eventually having to bring this to their own board for approval. And let's just say that the U.S.-Canada relations are not looking great right now. So if we can add even more chaos to this story, show up, write the op-eds. If we have a rally, we'll always post about it in the newsletter. Show up. We gathered outside of the Sahuarita Town Council meeting last month with some signs. We got some press for that. I see a little bit of press here. Just show up and make as much noise about this. It might not feel like it's doing something, but it's adding to the story that this is something that a large amount of the population is not in support of. So I already talked about the rally. So now we're going to do questions. So in order to keep us civilized, hold on, we can't be calling on people because it's going to get too complicated on who raised their hand first. I know it's tight. If I can ask the folks that are here, if you can just scooch back a little bit or go around here, we're going to form a queue or a line on this side. You are going to be limited to 60 seconds for your questions, so please don't let this be a moment where we hear a TED Talk. Ask your question here. You will be cut off, and then we'll answer it as quickly as possible, and then we'll be officially over at 12:30, at which time we need to get out of here because the room needs to be cleared by 1 p.m. But thank you for coming out. Thank you for the folks who are leaving. Thank you for the people who suffered in the heat. You guys are heroes. Show up. And that's what you did today. Thank you.
Yep. And I'll be the muscle enforcing the 1 minute thing, so don't make me get angry.
So line up over here if you have a question.
All right, this isn't actually a question. What I want to do is have you, if you're not aware of the app called 5 Calls, please, 5 Calls, it's either .com or .org, I don't know which. It's a way where if you go in there, you can find out who your reps are. You can also, and then you can go and find out what issues are if you don't have your own specific one. And you can actually make those 5 calls in just minutes. And the more calls they get, the better.
Great, thank you. And look at that, 40 seconds.
I'm aware that Pima County is apparently currently rewriting their dark sky regs. And I was recently camping in Madeira and looked up in the middle of the night, and I could not believe the lights above the mine for us. And I'm wondering what regulation are they falling under, and is that being addressed? Especially for an operation that's going to be running 24/7. Those lights up there above the mine, which you can't see, I live in Green Valley, you can't see them from Green Valley. But if you step out or get over to Madeira Canyon, they are brighter than Green Valley.
Is that just a statement or no? Okay.
My question is how it addresses the lighting.
We only have one mic, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually I was talking to folks at Pima County last week about this, and the mine, not surprisingly, is exempt from the light regulations. So the best that they can do, which they are trying, is to try to convince the mine to be a good neighbor and say, well, could you maybe do this or that or the other thing? But
okay, I got 2 things. First off, a few years ago, they said that we had a 100-year supply of water. It sounds like that just got blown out. Another thing, for each email or letter sent to a politician, they figure 10 or more feel the same way. So if everybody sends something to everybody, Democrats and Republicans, they might pay attention. And I suggest pulling out the laws that they're violating and exempt from. Thank you.
Thank you.
For you, actually.
Oh, okay.
Who in Green Valley is not supportive?
Let me take that. When you say Green Valley, are you talking about residents or the Green Valley Council?
The resident, I mean, who can I get in touch with to find out why they're not supportive? Because I live in.
Honestly, I kind of want to give it to the Green Valley community because you probably know where your influence points. Did you want to answer that?
Well,
I'm very disappointed to hear that the Green Valley Council, because
me too, I live there and I'm
I know,
furious.
and I guess that's the first place that we should start, right there.
That would be my guess.
Because that is important. And I was going to suggest that a lot of people from Green Valley think, oh, it's just up here. But this kind of a program should be put down there. So that's my suggestion. And be vocal. And I'm also upset that Steve Christie is not, and I was shocked to hear that the mayor, whom I thought I was good friends with, but now we may not be, because I'm raising hell from Cincinnati, And I'm very disappointed that this really needs to be addressed.
No, he is in favor of it. So Tom Murphy and Steve Christie are in favor of the mine. Yeah, I know. Of the, yeah. Sorry.
To repeat what Anna said, both of them are in favor of the mine.
Not of us.
I want to say, I know a lot of you probably voted for him. I sure did. I did not vote for him.
Okay, let's not get too political. We're in a public space.
Just wanted to say, you know, anybody who lives in Green Valley, whoever drives down I-19, right? These trucks are going to pose a risk.
Two comments on you. I've written Steve Christie many times, and he just writes me a flat, nice handwritten letter on stationery that says, "I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do." That's it. Also, he wrote his own comment. Pima County wrote a 53-item, very, very well written, as did SSSR, comment on the permit for the air, and Steve Christie actually wrote his own raving about the mine.
It was the water, but
It was the water.
Yeah.
It was the water one. Yeah, so he wrote his own, and county put a public one, and he didn't sign that one. He wrote his own in praise of that. And then also to the gentleman in maroon, I just wanted to point out to back up what you said about writing letters makes a difference. We were fighting, Hudbay was trying to get the 2 parcels of state land in 2022, and we went crazy with the commissioner of the state land department, Robin Sahid, and the governor, and I would say thousands of people wrote letters to her, and they did not put it up for auction. So it makes a difference.
We need a listing of all the phone numbers, email addresses of all the significant parties. Mark, whether it's Mark Kelly, Grijalva's dead right now, whether it's the mayor of Tucson, the mayor here in Sahuarita, Green Valley. To say these generalizations, half the people here, and I'm one part of that half, aren't going to know.
yeah. So in terms of
How many people know what website? How many people here use
yeah,
it?
so just
the microphone so we can all hear you.
yeah. Sorry. Okay, so we actually have a queue of people asking a question. So effectively, what he is saying is that he would like to have a list of all the phone numbers and contacts. And so to reiterate, if you go to stopcopperworld.com, there is a write letters button there. There's only a couple of buttons on the entire website, and you will have both templates and contact information for the relevant people for that particular those letters. That being said, if there's a federal bill, we might have a new letter at some point that's going to go to senators and things like that. We try to have all of that contact information on the website. And I guess I didn't say this as part of my thing. Our general website is scenicsantaritas.org, but honestly, if you just Google Save the Scenic Santa Ritas, trust me, nobody else is using our name. It's too convoluted.
I want to underscore the power of us. I come from a small town in California, I live in Green Valley now, that defeated the coal interests who were trying to drive large coal tar railroads through the middle of our town. We were the first small town to have the success to defeat them. Because what we did, our local councils and boards of supervisors, their main function is to safeguard the health and safety of its citizens. Please remember that, the health and safety of its citizens. There's a lot of other information, excellent information that's been presented today, but that's the underlying issue here, health and safety. And what we chose to do was we showed up at all the meetings all the time in t-shirts and had signs. And the small town of Benicia, get in touch with them.
Thank you so much. I hate to cut people off. All right, next.
Well, it occurs to me that you create a groundswell, and that can bring political pressure against people involved in this whole thing. But it occurs to me that it may be that the only real way to stop it is through legal success. And is that true? I mean, it's not just a political issue; it's a legal issue. You know, can we beat it on the legal front?
Well, I just want to reiterate one thing real quick. So I'm going to let you tackle the legal side of it, but I do want to say this will go through HUD-Bay's board to approve this mine going forward. And so I do think that having as much of this project look problematic for people is something to be, valued. Is that what you're going to say?
That was kind of what I was going to say.
I thought you were going to have a lot.
Believe it or not, we spend a lot of time thinking about strategy, right? And so we have different pieces of that strategy that reinforce each other. One of them is public outreach like this, which we hope will result in political pressure on elected officials, telling them, get off your butts and do something to protect us. And as we just heard from Cathy, that worked. When HUD-Bay wanted, they were trying to convince the state land department to put some parcels up for auction that would allow them to, is your map still up there? It's not.
We've turned off everything.
Yeah, they wanted this so they could go from here to there and pile the tailings next to her house. And they were putting huge pressure on the state to sell them this. It was on the list to be put up for auction, and we got people. Probably some of you wrote emails, and we sent them to the governor, and we sent them to the head of the state land department, and at least so far it hasn't been sold. So there's that. We use press a lot. We try to get out in the community as much as we can, but another big piece is litigation, and litigation can be absolutely critical and expensive. Click that button on our website.
I'm not supposed to say that.
No, it's fine. I'm not sure we're supposed to fundraise in the library.
We might get some attorneys locally that would
Maybe we
do
can.
it pro bono.
Looks like we lost our timekeeper, so we're just going to trust. Wait, were you still talking? No. Oh, okay. We didn't practice this.
We're a great pair.
Oh my gosh. I don't want to get kicked out. They're definitely looking the other way at the fact that we're way over capacity. Okay, I'm just gonna time you.
I promise I'll go fast. I live in Indiana. I inherited my father's house in Green Valley, and I've been coming here since the 90s, and took care of him for years and years. Anyway, my question is, and this is not going to help in the short term, but what can we do to get these 150, 200-year-old mining laws changed? I mean, in the long term, because we're going to be fighting these battles over and over and over again. And as your state is turning purpler and hopefully someday bluer, fingers crossed, I mean, is there something that we should also be doing in terms of lobbying and looking at changing the laws?
Can I say one thing real quick? Hopefully we won't repeat each other. But so what she's talking about is this 1852 mining law that we're still operating with. 72. I was like, that doesn't sound right. So all that to say, many people over many years have been trying to rejig that law. Some people are trying to make it more permissive, and that's actually going through the Senate right now. So the Mining Regulatory Clarity Act, please contact Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego and tell them to vote no on this if it ever comes up, or when it comes up. There is also another bill going through Senate that's trying to rework it to the better end. I'm just going to be honest, it's probably not going to go anywhere, but people have tried. Raul Grijalva was one who tried for many, many years. That's not to say we shouldn't keep going, but that is the million-dollar question.
Can you add that to your Facebook, that information? Yeah, please.
Sure. Yes. Okay. It was. I don't know if it is anymore.
Yeah, I'll just say, so if our main website, Anna said, is scenicsanaritas.org. And if you click, there's a button up on the top menu that says action, and down below there's write letters. And we try to update that all the time. We don't want to overwhelm you guys and say, please write letters, emails for these 15 things. So, but there'll be something up in the next few days about this really disastrous legislation that looks like it's going to get through Congress. And it would, if you can believe this, give mining companies the right to take any federal land that all they have to do is assert that it's necessary for their mine. So
They can dump on BLM.
yeah, they can dump on
anytime.
right. That's
That's
right. But this is going to allow them to dump on any public land.
Do they have to pay royalties for that?
No. And so that's the kind of thing that's going to come up. Probably we may be asking you to write letters next week. So we will always keep that up to date, and also we constantly refresh what's right on our homepage with this. And so typically, if there's some kind of an emergency, please, send emails now. It's an emergency. You'll typically see that on the homepage, but always, if you go to the Act Now and then look for the Letters tab, you'll see examples of letters that you can send, who to send it to exactly, and the contact information for the folks to send to.
I will just say, just in case you're having action overload right now, the one thing, if you just sign up for our newsletter, we will let you know when and what and how and all that, because with these bills, like, we will know before they actually are going to vote when they're coming, and that way we can send emails at a really critical time, because otherwise, people will just burn out. So, all right, so it is 12:10. We're still going through. We'll be here till 12:30. So if anybody wants to hang around, please do. Just the only thing is, before you leave, make sure you do sign up for emails if you don't already get them. But we'll keep hanging out and keep going down the list. Or the line.
Hi, Kurt from Corona to Tucson. So he answered the question about the BML land and all.
BLM, but it's
BLM. And
federal land.
Yeah, federal land dumping. The other one is, I've talked to the state, and I've talked to Pima County, and these Sahuarita guys, and they all point fingers at each other, and there's no accountability on anything. So maybe he can address that, as far as accountability is getting passed from the state to the county to the city. And everybody's just pointing fingers and won't do anything. And all we need to do is cut their road off. So maybe it's time for a peaceful protest on a road.
May 3rd.
No, not in Tucson. On the road. How can we block the road?
Are you talking about Sahuarita Road?
Yeah, so they cut
Okay.
off.
Can I get that one?
Okay.
We just made 150 signs. We had the groups in the neighborhoods. We had paint. We had fun. It was therapy. And we got a box of signs that have special words that probably you want to ask if you want to use those. But we made a bunch of signs for the rally, and we are also looking to do some pop-up along Houghton Road, or have 10, 12 people hold signs up and get attention to cars. Again, it's getting the word out, getting people to know what's going on, and if they see the word Hud Bay Copper World, they might Google it and figure it out.
And
What about,
if you can't get a hold of them, these guys directly, you can always go through on it.
Okay.
I have two quick things. One is I got to talk to Katie Hobbs briefly about my cousin being a part of writing the 1980 Groundwater Management Act and how proud he was of that, and complimenting her on the work she's done in Wilcox. And she said that she really hoped to be able to make some big differences in groundwater law in Arizona, so mining would be a great place for that. And then my other thing is the University of Arizona is also exempt from dark sky stuff. And my husband is part of a committee and the International Dark Sky Association, which is headquartered in Tucson, to make that stop. And that would be, anyway, that needs to be addressed because they don't need to share all that light.
I don't know if that was a question.
Statement, question. So just a short time ago, us as a small community put a stop to Vulcan asphalt.
Yeah.
So as all of us as multiple cities, can we not put a stop to this from starting? It's a bigger group of people. We should be able to stop this before anything gets going.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good point.
So a different perspective, we just bought a property at the end of February in Quail Creek and moved in to our house about 3 weeks ago, and the following Saturday we got this letter, or this note, from you talking about Copperwell. And I went, oh, if only I'd known. So what's the process in the real estate world to make the notices go out? Well, why are we not attacking that? Because I think if we hit the realty world, you already know properties aren't selling, and I think we could help get the message across that more properties aren't going to sell if they were required to disclose this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody want to take that?
They did 10-foot pole.
Well, was that a question or?
Kind of both.
Okay, do you?
I can address the realtor part, which I think is a very good point.
All right, okay.
I am a former realtor, primarily as an associate because I was in lending, but the realtor organization is huge nationally, and they have been working diligently for the last couple decades to improve the reputation. So if you attack them on this, I think that you might have some success.
So that could be another.
Yeah, because like for instance, they were recently required, when I say recently, it's like last 10 years or so, to disclose if a property, if someone died or was murdered or whatnot within that property. They used to always keep that on the QT. Now they're required to disclose it. I think this is along that same line.
Okay, I just had like an idea to kind of, I don't know if it relates to it or not, but if there's property that stands in their way, would be called like Save the Valley. And you sell everybody like a square foot parcel of land, and that could go like anywhere across the country. And then when they have to litigate anything in an area, they got to deal with everybody that owes a square foot of that land.
That's not a bad idea.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's a really good idea.
That's a great idea. That's one of the things that I get so excited about is having these conversations with people. Everyone has such fantastic ideas and history and all that. So thank you all for coming out. All right.
You mentioned Steve Christi, and my question is he related to Christie's Appliances? That might be a avenue to look at also.
Let's not go after appliances. No, I'm just saying.
But you could still mention to him that we're part of this area out here and just talk to him and see if there's any way we persuade him. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I just want to say, so Cathy had said the Pima County supervisors do meet every other week. You were more than welcome to go there and speak during their open meeting section. We just want to point out that they have voiced opposition to this project, so they would not be one where we would, grill them fully, except for Steve Christi.
Hi, I'm Rick Corrado. I live in Quail Creek. Just a quick question. How many people here watch Yellowstone? 1923? This is Yellowstone all over again, folks. Greedy people who want power and money are coming into our community, buying up our land, and now they're going to ruin it and leave us with nothing. Okay? That's number one. Number two, they have said, and it has been pointed out at the meeting here, they're going to use 6,000 acre-feet of water per year, maybe. According to the ADEQ, they can pump as much water as they want, up to 10 million gallons. Let me ask you a question. How long do you think our aquifer is going to last pumping 10 million gallons of water out of it every year for 20 years? A day. Okay, a day. So how long do you think it's going to last? It's not going to last. And I'll tell you one other thing to think about. Think about Freeport McMoran over here. I talked to some people just yesterday who said that they own 10-acre parcels over there, and Freeport McMoran promised them they wouldn't touch their water. guess what? All their wells are running dry. So think about that, okay? This is 1923, this is Yellowstone all over again, and we need to have a voice because they can't do this. They can't meet in private and come out and make, edicts over what they decided. That is constitutionally against the law. It violates the Brown Act. The public has to be involved and needs to be involved. This is wrong, and we need to stop it. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Just one very quick announcement. Just a quick announcement. The library asked me to ask anyone who's parked in the circle where you're not allowed to park because it's a fire lane to move your cars to one of the open parking places. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joan Money. I'm a resident of Corona de Tucson. I'm also a real estate agent. And for any property transfers, whether it's vacant land or residential property, there's a document called the seller's property disclosure statement. And on that statement, the seller has to disclose everything they know about the property. Another thing that a lot of agents don't know is that if they know something about the property, they're also required to notify the seller that this is also part of their disclosure because I'm now telling you this. So there really is no reason for anybody to not know what's going on with the property they're about to buy unless their agent isn't filling them in. And maybe it sounds like I'm conflicted here, but I live in the area. I do know, I want people to know what they're getting into because that's the right thing to do.
Thank you.
This isn't a question, but I wanted everyone to know that we went through this back in 2007, and that was back when they had the east side of that, and they tried to put things through, and fortunately some people that lived on the east side of the mountain got a hold of it, got a group together, like people like yourself, and we worked really hard. And what it's going to take, and I believe that we can win, but it is going to take everyone getting really involved, talk to your neighbors, and really ring the alarm because things can move fast. And we also did try to work on the law, and Raul Grajales was with us back then. And so we haven't had success, and I don't live in the area right now, I do own property, but I just want to say this one last thing that's really important, is it's all about the water, okay? Everybody's talking about, their lands and the tellings and, all that kind of stuff, but it's all about the water. And I still have the property here, and Rosemont had come in and put a well, and the well is 1,200 feet deep. It has a 10-inch casing, and it will pump 500 gallons. I don't know if it was a minute, an hour. It's really, like I said, it's been 18 years ago, so I can't even remember all this. But I just wanted to encourage everyone that if everyone works hard, and I've listened to some of these other people give advice, and do so. You're representatives, but you've got to go at it strong because they're sneaky.
And there goes all our beautiful pecan trees.
All right.
Thank you.
And then, so Ms. Helen will be our
Yeah,
last
they
question.
get a lot of acre feet.
All right. Helen, take us out.
This is really not a question, but it's a observation. So far, first of all, I think Green Valley is separate because they think, oh, we're not in the mountains. But the presentation today is phenomenal. If you're a human being, this is going to affect you. And that's what we have to talk about. The fact of the problems that it's just not the mountains and the tailings and the water. It's basically our air. People getting sicker and pets dying all of a sudden that get a lot of valley fever. So my question or my suggestion is you need to bring this to some of the communities like Green Valley, and we need to do protesting, which is something I've done quite frequently. That's why they call me Hell Raising Helen from Cincinnati. I've been almost arrested a couple of times, but I stood my ground.
Awesome.
And so, but no, we have a wonderful corner down there. Esperanza and La Cañada is our bitch corner.
Awesome.